He shoveled me off my own private jet and left me to die on a deserted airstrip. All to steal my $1.7 billion company. My son-in-law thought he'd won, but when he landed in the Caymans a few hours later, I was waiting in the boardroom with a nasty surprise he never saw coming. My name is Johnathan Cole. I built Cole Industries from the dirt up. I know the taste of concrete dust and the sting of sleepless nights. I didn't just build a company. I built an empire. And empires always attract vultures. I just never expected the biggest vulture to be married to my daughter. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me back up and tell you how a celebration turned into a war. It started at a dinner party, my penthouse overlooking New York City. The lights below glittered like scattered diamonds. It was supposed to be a celebration. 2 months ago, I turned 60. I decided it was time. I handed the keys to the kingdom to Mike Anderson. My son-in-law, the man who married my Sarah. Mike was charming, sharp suit, bright smile. He always knew the right thing to say. I thought he was ambitious, like I used to be. I thought he was the future. That was my first mistake, and it was a big one. The room was full of people I thought were friends. My lawyer David, looking tired near the bar. My sister Emily, nursing a glass of wine. And then there were Mike and Sarah. Sarah, my girl. She had my eyes. But tonight she looked pale. She kept twisting the massive diamond ring on her finger, a nervous habit she'd had since she was a kid. Mike stood in the center of the room, champagne flute in hand. He was glowing. He owned the space. To the future, Mike announced, his voice booming. Everyone raised their glasses. And to John, Mike continued, turning to me. His smile felt tight, for building such an incredible foundation. He paused, letting the compliment hang in the air. But then came the twist. Now, he said, his voice hardening slightly, it's time to build the skyscraper. The room cheered. I forced a smile. But something felt wrong. It wasn't gratitude in his voice. It was dismissal. He was already erasing me. I tried to catch his eye. Keep things light. Just remember, Mike, I said, swirling my scotch. A skyscraper still needs that foundation. Don't get so high up you forget the ground. Mike laughed. Too loud, too forced. Oh, John. He walked over and clapped me on the shoulder. The gesture was hard, condescending. The ground is so far away now. We're in the clouds. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice just enough for me to hear. The old ways, the ground level thinking, it just doesn't apply anymore. He walked away, leaving me standing alone. The message was clear. The old man was obsolete. But that wasn't the worst part. David, my lawyer and oldest friend, caught my eye from across the room. He gave a slight shake of his head. He'd warned me, don't give him the keys so fast, John. Make him earn the final say. I hadn't listened. I trusted family. I trusted my daughter's judgment. David walked over, his face grim. He's moving fast, John. He's eager. That's a good thing, I replied, trying to convince myself. Eager is good. Reckless is dangerous, David murmured. This Titan acquisition he's pushing, it smells wrong. The Titan acquisition. Mike's obsession, a $1.7 billion deal to absorb a rival tech firm. It was risky, highly leveraged. Mike claimed it would double our value overnight. We're closing the deal next Friday, Mike announced to a group of board members near the fireplace. We have to do it offshore. Tax reasons, efficiency. He flashed that winning smile again. Just a quick trip to the Cayman Islands, in and out. Offshore? That was new? We always did business right here in New York. Why the secrecy? Why the rush? A cold dread started creeping into my stomach. Later that evening, I found Sarah on the balcony. The wind whipped her hair across her face. She was staring out at the city, but not seeing it. You okay, sweetheart? I asked. She jumped, startled. Oh, Dad. Yes, I'm fine. She didn't look fine. She looked terrified. It's just this deal, she whispered, twisting that ring again. It's a lot of pressure on Mike. He seems to be enjoying the pressure, I noted. He wants to prove himself to you, she said quickly. Too quickly. He doesn't need to prove anything, Sarah. I gave him the job. She looked down at her hands. Avoided my eyes. He says you're still hovering, Dad, that you won't let go. My blood ran cold. Hovering? I had stepped back completely. He says it's stressful for you too, she continued, her voice trembling slightly. That maybe you need a real break.
A long one.
A real break. The words hung in the cold night air. It felt like a script written by Mike. He wasn't just managing the company, he was managing my daughter, and he was turning her against me. The next day, I went to the office. I still kept my corner office habit. I liked being near the heartbeat of my company. But the heartbeat felt different. The air was tense. Quiet. Too quiet. I walked onto the finance floor. I saw faces I didn't recognize. Young, sharp, aggressive. Mike's people, a sleek, modern glass office had been installed where the old cubicles used to be. Inside sat a woman with sharp features and an icy expression. She looked like a shark in a designer suit. She stepped out as I approached. "Can I help you, Mr. Cole?" Her voice was smooth, but cold. "I'm just looking around." "Who are you?" "I'm Lisa Harper, the new Chief Financial Officer." "CFO? We already had a CFO. Old Tom Peterson. He'd been with me for 20 years. Tom was family." "Where's Tom?" I asked, my voice tight. Lisa smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Peterson took early retirement. Effective immediately. Tom? Retired? He never mentioned it. It was a sudden decision," Lisa said smoothly. "Mike, Mr. Anderson hired me to streamline the finances ahead of the Titan acquisition. We needed a more aggressive approach. Streamline, aggressive, words that meant cuts. Firings. Mike had fired Tom, my most loyal employee, and he hadn't even told me. This was a message. A declaration of war. I kept my face neutral. I'd like to see the latest projections for the Titan deal." Lisa tilted her head. "Of course, I'll have my assistant schedule a briefing with Mike. He's handling all the specifics personally."
She was blocking me.
Politely, professionally, but blocking me nonetheless. I was the founder, the chairman of the board, and I was being told to schedule a meeting to see my own company's data. I walked away, the realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. Mike was cleaning house, removing everyone loyal to me, locking down the information. He was isolating me. But why? I needed answers. I couldn't just sit back and watch him dismantle everything I built. I decided to visit Tom Peterson. I drove to his house in the suburbs, a modest house, comfortable. Tom was in his garage, packing boxes. "John," he looked surprised and tired. "Tom, what happened? Lisa Harper said you retired." Tom sighed. He looked older than I remembered. "I didn't retire, John. I was pushed out." "Why?" "I started asking questions about the Titan deal," Tom said, lowering his voice. "The numbers didn't add up. The loan structure, it's insane. We're borrowing on about $7 billion, leveraged against the company's assets. That's risky, but not illegal," I said. "That's not the issue," Tom insisted. "It's the transfer accounts. The money isn't going directly to Titan. It's being routed through a holding company in the Caymans. A company I couldn't access. When I pushed Mike on it, he had security escort me out of the building. A holding company. The pieces were starting to fit together, and the picture they were forming was ugly. He threatened me, John," Tom whispered, his hands shaking. He said, if I talked, he would destroy me. He said he had connections now, powerful connections. I felt a surge of protective rage. "Who are these connections, Tom?" "I don't know, but there was a man in his office the day I was fired. Cold eyes. Didn't say much. Mike seemed almost scared of him. A new player, someone pulling Mike's strings. I didn't know yet, but I was going to find out." I thanked Tom and left. I had to get back to the office. I had to find proof. I returned to the office late that afternoon. The building felt hostile. My own building. I was walking past the main conference room. The door was slightly ajar. I heard Mike's voice. He was on a video call. I stopped. My heart pounded in my chest. "Everything is set," Mike was saying. His tone was low, urgent. "The paperwork is finalized. Lisa has the accounts ready for the transfer." "And John?" It was Lisa's voice coming from the speaker. Mike laughed. A dry, cruel sound I'd never heard him use before. It was the sound of a snake shedding its skin. "The old man is clueless," Mike sneered. "He's busy planning his retirement cruise. By the time we land in the Caymans on Friday, he'll be completely out of the picture. He paused. And then the final blow. He won't own a single share. It's done. I stood frozen in the hallway. The air rushed out of my lungs, completely out of the picture. He won't own a single share. This wasn't just ambition. This wasn't ego. This was theft, a heist. He was using the $1.7 billion acquisition as a smokescreen to steal my entire company. My life's work. My blood ran cold and then hot with rage. He thought I was weak, that I was old and finished. He was about to find out how wrong he was. I walked straight to David's office. He was on the phone, looking stressed. He hung up when he saw my face. "John, what is it? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," I said, shutting the door and locking it. "A snake. Mike is stealing the company, David. He's using the Titan acquisition to do it." David sighed, rubbing his temples. He didn't look surprised. That hurt more than I expected. "I knew it," he admitted. "I knew that deal was rotten." The speed, the secrecy, the offshore closing. How is he doing it exactly? I don't know the mechanics yet, but I heard him say that by Friday I won't own a single share. Tom Peterson warned me about a holding company. David shot up from his chair. "A holding company? John, this is a coup. We have to stop it. We have to call the board, freeze the acquisition." "No," I said sharply. "If we tip our hand now, Mike will cover his tracks. He'll destroy the evidence. He's smart, David, and he's desperate. I thought about the man Tom saw in Mike's office. I think he might have backup. Dangerous backup." "Okay," David said, his lawyer brain kicking into gear. "I have the preliminary paperwork for the Titan deal. It's massive. Thousands of pages. I'll start digging. I'll look for poison pills, hidden clauses, anything about ownership transfer. Do it fast, David. We have until Friday." I went back to my office. I needed to check the financial transfers myself. I sat down at my computer. I logged into the main company server, the back end, where the real money moved. Access denied. I tried again. My password. My security questions. Access denied. User privileges restricted. My own system. The system I designed. I couldn't get in. Panic seized my chest. Mike had thought of everything. He hadn't just restricted my access. He had severed my connection to the empire I built. I was locked out, helpless, watching from the sidelines as my life's work was stolen. I had to fight the helplessness before I could make my next move, and I knew exactly where to start. I marched down to Lisa Harper's office. I didn't knock. I just walked in. She was on the phone, laughing. She stopped when she saw me. "Why am I locked out of the server?" I demanded. Lisa didn't even flinch. "Mr. Cole, as I mentioned, we are streamlining operations." She steepled her fingers on the desk. "Ahead of the acquisition, we've implemented strict security protocols. Only essential personnel have access to the transfer systems. I am the chairman of the board." My voice was rising. "And Mike Anderson is the CEO with full operational control," she replied coldly. "He authorized the changes. If you have a complaint, take it up with him." She was immovable. A fortress protecting Mike's secrets. I realized then that she wasn't just an employee. She was a co-conspirator. She was in on the theft. I walked out. I needed help from the inside. Someone Mike didn't control. And then I remembered her. Elaine Vance, a junior analyst in the IT department. I hired her 3 years ago. Smart, quiet, ambitious. She kept her head down. Maybe she had seen something. I found her in the server room. It was cold, the machines humming loudly. "Elaine?" She looked up, surprised. "Mr. Cole? What are you doing down here?" "I need your help," I said, lowering my voice. "I'm locked out of the system." Elaine hesitated. She looked scared. "I can't do that, sir. Mr. Anderson implemented new protocols. I could lose my job. It's important, Elaine. It's about the future of this company." She looked away, biting her lip. "He's changing everything, Mr. Cole. He's moving data offshore, encrypting everything." Then she looked at me, her eyes flashing with anger. "He thinks he owns us. All of us." I saw the pain in her eyes. Something personal. "What did he do to you, Elaine?" I asked gently. She took a shaky breath. He made advances. At the office party last month, when I turned him down, he threatened my career. He said I was nothing, that he could replace me in a second. Rage boiled inside me. He wasn't just a thief. He was a predator. Help me stop him, Elaine, I said. Help me take him down. Elaine nodded, her jaw set. I can't give you access, but I can tell you where to look. He's been communicating with someone outside the company, a Marcus Thorne. Marcus Thorne. The name hit me like a ton of bricks. Thorne was a ruthless venture capitalist, a loan shark in a $1,000 suit. If Mike was dealing with Thorne, he wasn't just greedy. He was in trouble. Thorne is dangerous. Elaine, I know, she said. Mike owes him money. A lot of money. I think that's why he's rushing the acquisition. He needs the cash flow, the deeper betrayal. Mike wasn't just stealing my company to be rich. He was stealing it to save his own skin, and he was willing to destroy everything I built to do it. If this story is keeping you hooked, drop a like. It was that realization that changed everything. This wasn't just about money anymore. It is about survival. I returned to David's office late that night. He had papers spread across his entire desk. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were sharp. I found it, he whispered, as if the walls had ears. It's brilliant, and it's evil. He pointed to a dense paragraph buried on page 12045 of the agreement. It's hidden in the restructuring clause. The Titan acquisition isn't just Cole Industries buying Titan. It's a merger. And as part of the merger, all assets of Cole Industries are being transferred into that new holding company in the Caymans. Okay, so we're both under a new umbrella. I still own my shares, I said. That's the trick, David said, grimly. This new holding company has a different share structure. It voids the existing Cole Industries shares upon transfer. New shares are issued, and the sole signatory, the only person authorized to receive those new shares, Mike, I finished, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. Yes. He leveraged the company to borrow the $1.7 billion, used that money to trigger the merger, and structured the merger to wipe out your ownership entirely. When that document is signed on Friday, you lose everything. The company, the money, the name. It all belongs to Mike Anderson. It was surgical, clean, a betrayal so deep, it cut to the bone. He wasn't just taking my money, he was erasing my life. And he had used my daughter to do it. I had to talk to Sarah. I had to know if she was part of this. Was she a victim or an accomplice? I drove to their house, the massive, modern mansion I had bought for them as a wedding gift. Another mistake. I found her in the living room, staring at an empty fireplace. Mike was nowhere in sight, probably celebrating his victory early. Sarah, we need to talk, I said. She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. She knew why I was here. Dad, I don't know what you think is happening, but he's stealing the company, Sarah, I interrupted, my voice cracking. He's wiping me out, completely. Did you know? This was the moment. My daughter, my own flesh and blood. If she sided with him, I was truly alone. The pain of her potential betrayal was worse than losing the money. She burst into tears. It's not like that, Dad. Mike said you needed help. Help? By robbing me? He said you were getting reckless, that you were making bad decisions, that the board was worried. She was sobbing now, twisting her hands. He said we needed to protect the legacy, protect you from yourself. I stared at her, horrified. Protect me from myself. Sarah, I'm fine. He's lying to you. He's manipulating you. He showed me the paperwork, Dad. He said you agreed to it. That's impossible. He said you signed the initial agreement months ago, giving him proxy control if you became incapacitated. I froze. Months ago. Right after my 60th birthday. I had signed some papers David had vetted. Routine stuff. Or so I thought. Mike must have slipped something in. A forgery. I looked at Sarah. She believed the lies. Mike had poisoned her mind against me, turning my own daughter into a shield for his greed. He's using you, Sarah, I said, my voice softening. He's using you to justify his theft. The new holding company, it's only in his name, and he owes money to dangerous people. Marcus Thorne, Sarah gasped. She knew the name. Marcus Thorne? He told me that was just business. It's not business, Sarah. It's desperation. He's going to destroy everything. She hesitated. I didn't know that. You need to trust me. You need to help me stop him. I can't, she whispered, terrified. He's my husband. I'm flying with him to the Caymans tomorrow. I have to be there. She was too scared, too confused. I couldn't rely on her. I was on my own. I went back to the penthouse. I needed a plan. The final documents were being signed on the island at 10 a.m. Friday. I needed to be there. I needed to stop it before the ink dried. I called Robert, my chief pilot. He'd been with me for 15 years, loyal to the bone. Robert, I need the Gulfstream ready. We're going to the Caymans. Tomorrow night. You got it, boss, Robert said, cheerful as always. But I thought Mike was taking the G5 for that trip. He is. I need the other jet. The older one. No problem. Wheels up at 8 p.m. Make it 7. I felt a glimmer of hope. I could beat him there. I could expose the fraud to the bankers before they finalized the transfer. David was compiling the evidence. Elaine was watching the internal communications. I had a chance. The next morning, my phone rang. It was John, he said, his voice smooth and relaxed. Change of plans. The bankers want to move the meeting up. We're leaving tonight instead of tomorrow. Wheels up in 3 hours. Panic seized my chest. He was cutting me off. He must have sensed I was onto him. 3 hours. I couldn't mobilize my own jet that fast. I couldn't get the proof organized. He had backed me into a corner, and time was running out. That's sudden, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Time is money, John. You taught me that. His voice dripped with sarcasm. In fact, since you're the chairman, you should be there too. It looks better for the optics. Be at the airport in 2 hours. We'll fly together. He was trapping me. If I refused, it would look suspicious to the board. If I went, I would be trapped on a plane with him. Unable to communicate with David, walking straight into the lion's den. He wanted me there to watch him sign away my life. He wanted to see the defeat in my eyes. I had no choice. I'll be there, I called David. He moved the timeline. I'm flying with him tonight. Get me everything you have. The proof, the clauses, the communications with Thorne. Everything. Bring it to the airport. David met me at the private terminal. He handed me a thin, encrypted USB drive. It's all here, John. The original documents, the hidden clauses, the offshore account details, the proof that Mike forged the incapacity clause. It's enough to bury him. Good? I tucked the drive into my jacket pocket. Be careful, John, David warned. He's desperate. If he knows you have that drive, there's no telling what he'll do. Marcus Thorne is not a man who accepts failure. I nodded and walked towards the jet, the Gulfstream G5. My jet, Mike was already on board, along with Sarah and Lisa Harper. The atmosphere inside the cabin was icy. Sarah looked terrified, huddled in her seat. Lisa looked bored, tapping on her laptop. Mike looked triumphant. Glad you could make it, John, Mike said, swirling a glass of scotch. Let's go make history. The jet took off, climbing steeply into the night sky. We were heading south, towards the Caribbean, towards the end of my empire. About 2 hours into the flight, the pleasantries stopped. The cabin was quiet, just the hum of the engines. The tension was suffocating. I decided to make my move. I couldn't wait until we landed. It's a clever plan, Mike, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. Mike paused, his glass halfway to his lips. What plan is that, John? The merger, the holding company, the disappearing shares, wiping me out. Sarah gasped. Lisa stiffened, her eyes narrowing. Mike didn't flinch. He just stared at me, the mask finally slipping. His eyes were cold, dead. The charming son-in-law was gone, replaced by the vulture. So the old man still has some teeth, he said quietly. I know everything, Mike. I know about the $1.7 billion loan. I know about the offshore accounts. And I know about Marcus Thorne. Mike's face twitched at the mention of Thorne. Fear flashed in his eyes. It doesn't matter what you know, Mike said, leaning forward. It's too late. We land in 4 hours. I signed the papers. It's over. You should have taken the retirement cruise, John. It's not over until I say it's over. I have the proof. Right here. I tapped my jacket pocket where the USB drive was hidden. The forgery. The fraud. It's all there. Mike's eyes narrowed. Proof doesn't matter when you don't have power. He stood up. He was younger than me, stronger, and fueled by greed and fear. I'm fear. You lied to me, Sarah cried out, suddenly turning on Mike. You told me you were protecting him. You told me Dad was sick. Shut up, Sarah, Mike snapped, his voice vicious. I was protecting us from his suffocating control, and I was protecting us from Thorne. He turned back to me. Give me the drive, John. No. He lunged at me. I blocked him, but he was fast. We struggled in the narrow cabin. The plane lurched with turbulence. Mike, stop! Sarah screamed. Lisa just watched, impassive, as if watching a corporate training video. Mike slammed me against the bulkhead. Pain shot through my shoulder. He ripped open my jacket, searching for the drive. I fought back, fueled by adrenaline and rage. This was my company, my life. But he overpowered me. He grabbed the USB drive. He held it up, a triumphant smirk on his face. You should have stayed retired, John. He threw the drive into his glass of scotch. The electronics fizzling and dying. Now you have nothing, he spat. He thought he had destroyed the evidence. He thought he had won, but he underestimated me. Suddenly the plane began to descend rapidly. The cabin lights flickered. What's happening? Lisa demanded, looking panicked for the first time. Mike looked surprised. He went to the cockpit door and hammered on it. Why are we landing? We're over the ocean. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. Calm, professional, minor engine issue, Mr. Anderson. Protocol requires we land at the nearest airstrip. Just a precaution. We're diverting to a small island in the Bahamas. Mike was furious, his face red with rage. But he couldn't argue with safety protocols. Not without revealing his desperation. The jet landed hard on a small, poorly lit runway. It was dark outside. I couldn't see anything but scrubland and a small, dilapidated hangar. We were in the middle of nowhere. As soon as the jet stopped, Mike grabbed my arm, his grip like iron. Get out, he hissed. What? He pulled me towards the door. The crew had already opened it, the stairs unfolding. Mike, what are you doing? Sarah cried, trying to pull him back. He shoved her away, hard. She fell back into a seat, sobbing. You're not going to the Caymans, John, Mike said, his face inches from mine. The hatred in his eyes was terrifying. You're staying here. Thorne can deal with you later. He dragged me to the top of the stairs. The air outside was hot and humid, smelling of salt and decay. You can't just leave him here, Sarah screamed. He's my father. Watch me, Mike said. This was it, the moment my life shattered. He didn't just push me. He slammed his shoulder into my chest with all his weight. I stumbled backward, lost my footing, and tumbled down the metal stairs, landing hard on the cracked concrete tarmac. Pain exploded in my hip and shoulder. I gasped for air. The wind knocked out of me. Mike stood at the top of the stairs, silhouetted against the cabin lights. He was breathing heavily. The jet is mine now, John, he shouted over the roar of the auxiliary power unit. The company is mine. Everything is mine. Enjoy your retirement. He stepped back inside. The door closed with a sickening finality. The stairs retracted. A moment later, the engines roared to life. The Gulfstream taxied away, turned, and took off into the night sky, leaving me alone on the abandoned airstrip. He had taken my phone, my wallet, everything. He had shoved me off my private jet to steal $1.7 billion. He thought he had left me to die, but he forgot one thing. I am a survivor. I lay on the concrete for a long time. The pain in my body was nothing compared to the agonizing pain of betrayal. Sarah. She had watched him do it. She hadn't stopped him. I forced myself to stand up. My shoulder throbbed. My hip was bruised. But I was alive. I looked around. The airstrip was deserted. No lights. No people. No phone. This was the lowest point. Stranded. Broken. Alone. The realization that I might actually die here, while Mike stole my life, was crushing. I had to fight the despair before I could fight Mike. I started walking. I needed to find civilization. I needed to find a phone. The heat was oppressive, even at night. Mosquitoes swarmed me. I walked for hours, following the dirt road leading away from the airstrip. Finally, I saw lights. A small, roadside bar near a marina. I stumbled inside. The few locals inside stared at me. A bruised, bleeding man in a torn $1,000 suit. "I need a phone," I gasped, leaning against the bar. The bartender, an older man with a weathered face, looked at me cautiously. "Who you need to call, man?" "My pilot, Robert." I still remembered his number. I had known it for 15 years. The bartender slid an old satellite phone across the bar. $2 a minute. I realized I had no money. I looked at the bartender, desperate. I took off my watch. A Rolex, the one I bought when I closed my first $1 million deal. "This is worth $20,000. Let me make one call." The bartender's eyes widened. He took the watch and nodded. I dialed the number with shaking hands. It rang. And rang. "Hello?" Robert's voice. Sleepy, confused. "Robert, it's John." "Boss? Where are you? I've been trying to reach you. Your tracker went offline. Mike threw me off the plane. I'm at a marina somewhere in the Bahamas." There was a stunned silence. "He what?" "He's heading to the Caymans. He's closing the deal at 10 a.m. He's stealing the company, Robert." Robert's voice instantly changed. Sleepiness gone, replaced by cold fury. "I'm coming to get you, boss." "Where exactly are you?" I gave him the name of the marina from the sign outside. "Okay, that's Crooked Island. I'm fueling the older jet now."
"I'll be there in 3 hours. Hold tight, John." 3 hours. It was already past midnight. It would be tight. I waited. I cleaned myself up in the small bathroom. I looked in the mirror. The man staring back at me was older, tired, but his eyes were burning with a fire I hadn't felt in decades. He wanted a war. He was going to get one. Robert landed just as the first hint of dawn colored the sky. He ran towards me, his face grim. "Boss, you okay?" "I'm fine. We need to fly, fast." We got on board the older jet. It wasn't as luxurious as the Gulfstream, but it was fast. "We have a problem, John," Robert said as we took off. "There's a storm system moving in between here and the Caymans. It's going to slow us down. The G5 must have flown around it. Even the weather was against me. Every minute we lost was a minute closer to Mike finalizing the theft." Frustration mounted. We were so close, yet the storm threatened to ruin everything. "Push it, Robert. Fly through it if you have to." "It's risky, boss. Losing my company is riskier." "Fly." Robert nodded, his jaw set. He pushed the engines to their limit. The jet shook violently as we hit the storm clouds. Rain hammered the windshield, but we were moving. While we flew, I realized something crucial. Mike had destroyed the USB drive. I had no physical proof. "Robert, do we have Wi-Fi on this jet?" "Yeah, but it's patchy over the ocean." I needed to contact David. I opened my laptop. Thankfully, I had left it on this jet. The Wi-Fi signal was weak, but it was there. I sent an urgent email to David. "David, Mike knows. He destroyed the drive. I'm heading to the Caymans now. I need the proof sent to the cloud. And I need you to initiate Plan B." Plan B, something David and I had set up years ago as an ultimate safeguard against hostile takeovers, a nuclear option. I had never thought I'd have to use it against my own family. The Wi-Fi cut out before I could get a reply. I was flying blind. Trusting David, trusting the plan. We landed in Grand Cayman at 9:30 a.m. 30 minutes before the meeting, the sun was blazing hot. The humidity suffocating. I didn't know if David had gotten the message. I didn't know if I had any proof. I only had myself. I took a taxi to the financial center where the meeting was being held. A sleek, modern building overlooking the turquoise water, the heart of the offshore banking world. I walked into the lobby at 9:55 a.m. 5 minutes to spare. I told the receptionist who I was. She called upstairs, her eyes wide surprise. I took the elevator up to the 20th floor. The doors opened into a massive, luxurious conference room
with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the island. They were all there. Mike, Sarah, Lisa, and 4 bankers, representing the institutions funding the $1.7 billion loan. The documents were spread out on the massive oak table. Mike was sitting at the head, a gold pen in his hand, ready to sign. He looked up as I entered, his face drained of color. He looked like he had seen a ghost. "John?" he whispered, stunned. "Dad?" Sarah looked at me, confused and scared. How did you get here?" Mike stammered, his hand shaking. I ignored him. I walked straight to the table, opposite the bankers. I still looked rough. My suit was torn, my face bruised, but my voice was strong. "Gentlemen," I said to the bankers, "I am John Cole, the founder and chairman of Cole Industries, and this deal's a fraud." Mike jumped up, his chair scraping loudly on the marble floor. "He's lying. He's delusional. Security." "Sit down, Mike," I said, my voice cutting through his panic like a knife. The bankers looked confused and alarmed. They exchanged nervous glances. "Mr. Cole," the lead banker said cautiously, "Mr. Anderson is the CEO. He has full authority to finalize this acquisition. The paperwork is in order. He has authority based on a lie," I said. "A forgery. He manipulated my daughter into believing I was incapacitated. This is not an acquisition. It's a theft. Mike Anderson is using your $1.7 billion to steal my company." "Where is your proof?" Lisa Harper challenged, her voice cold. She thought she had won. I looked at her. I still didn't know if David had come through. I had to bluff. "The proof is right here," I said, tapping my temple. "I know the structure of the new holding company. I know about Clause 12B, buried on page 12045, the clause that voids existing shares and reissues them solely to Mike Anderson." The bankers gasped. They started shuffling through the papers, looking for the clause. "He's Levin," Mike shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "Sign the papers." "Now, Marcus Thorne is expecting this deal to close." The mention of Thorne confirmed everything. The bankers knew the name. They looked even more nervous. "If you sign those papers," I said, looking the lead banker in the eye, "you are aiding and abetting a massive fraud. When this comes to light, your institutions will be ruined." The bankers hesitated. It was my word against his. The old founder versus the new CEO. I needed something concrete to tip the scales. I had seconds to win or lose everything. I needed a miracle. Just then, the conference room phone rang. The lead banker answered it, looking annoyed at the interruption. He listened, his face growing pale. "I understand. Yes, thank you." He hung up and looked at Mike, his expression hardening. "It appears there is a major issue," the banker said, his voice trembling slightly. "The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has just frozen all assets of Cole Industries, pending an investigation into massive financial irregularities." Mike froze. "What? That's impossible. Plan B." David had come through. He had alerted the SEC. "The nuclear option. And there's more," I said, seizing the moment. I looked down at my watch, my other watch, the smartwatch I always wore under my sleeve, not the Rolex I had traded for the phone call. I pressed a button. "The old man is clueless. By the time we land in the Caymans on Friday, he'll be completely out of the picture. He won't own a single share. It's done." Mike's voice echoed through the conference room, clear as day. The recording I had made in the hallway, automatically uploaded to the cloud, the backup Mike didn't know about. Mike's face turned ashen. Lisa Harper suddenly looked terrified. She knew it was over. Sarah stared at Mike, horror dawning on her face. "You lied?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You lied about everything." The game was over. "The deal is off," the lead banker announced, gathering the papers. "Mr. Anderson, you will be hearing from our legal department, and likely the authorities." The bankers walked out, leaving us alone in the silent room. Mike stood alone, trembling with rage and fear. He looked at me, his eyes filled with hatred. "You ruined everything," he screamed. "No, Mike," I said, feeling an overwhelming sadness. "You ruined yourself." The doors opened again. This time, it wasn't bankers. It was the Cayman Islands police. accompanied by 2 men in suits, FBI, and a man I recognized. Agent Miller from the SEC. David stood behind them. He nodded at me. Mike Anderson and Lisa Harper were handcuffed. Mike fought, screaming obscenities, denying everything until they dragged him out of the room. The silence in the aftermath was deafening. Only Sarah's quiet sobbing remained. The fallout was massive. The news exploded. Billionaire heist foiled. CEO arrested in Cayman Islands. The company's stock plunged, but the SEC investigation protected it from complete collapse. With Mike and Lisa facing charges of fraud, embezzlement, and attempted kidnapping, the path was clear for me to resume control. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a funeral. I found Sarah on the beach outside the hotel. She was staring at the ocean, the waves washing over her feet. She looked small, broken. "They're extraditing him back to the States," I said, standing beside her. She nodded, silent. "I'm starting the divorce proceedings," she whispered, her voice raw. "He used me? He made me doubt you? My own father." "He was convincing, Sarah. He fooled everyone. He fooled me. But I let him," she said, finally looking at me. Her eyes were clear now, but filled with pain. "I wanted the life he promised, the power, the escape. I ignored the signs because it was easier. It was a painful truth. Greed hadn't just infected Mike. It had touched everyone, even my daughter. Can you ever forgive me, Dad?" I looked at my daughter. The trust was broken. It would take a long time to heal, but she was still my girl. "We'll work on it, Sarah," I said, putting a hand on her shoulder. Brick by brick. We stood there for a long time, watching the sunset. The empire was safe, but the cost was high. The illusion of a happy family was shattered. A week later, I was back in New York. I stood in my corner office, looking out at the city skyline. The city I helped build. David came in, holding a thick file. The forensic accountants finished their report. "John," David said, sitting down heavily, "it was worse than we thought. Tell me." Mike had massive secret debts, gambling, bad investments. Marcus Thorne owned him. He wasn't just going to take the company. He was planning to liquidate everything to cover his debts. He would have sold off the assets, fired everyone, burned it to the ground. He would have destroyed everything. Everyone. "And Thorne?" I asked. "He's under investigation," David said. "The SEC is going after him hard. Mike's testimony will bury him." I looked around the office. The leather chair, the photos of Sarah growing up, the awards on the wall. My life. They thought they could just take it. They thought they could shove me out into the darkness and forget about me. But they forgot one thing. I built this empire from the darkness. I thrive in the turbulence. I sat down in my chair. It felt different now. Heavier, but it was still mine. "What now, John?" David asked. I looked out at the city. The lights were starting to come on, one by one, a new beginning. "Now," I said, leaning back in my chair, "we rebuild, stronger this time." Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your time matters.